where you get a chance to reflect, get recharged, get refreshed, get rejuvenated in a lot of instances where you say, let's look at this film, let's take a step back, let's give our guys a vision of how we're going to move forward, how we're going to do it with the right spirit. And today provides an opportunity to be able to get an extra day's worth of work. I know you guys are going to be curious about a lot of our guys. Today will be a big day for guys like Cooper Kupp. We'll see how he's doing. He's making good progress. I'll have an injury update in regards to how today goes for him. What does that affect? There is a possibility he could be ready this week. There's also a possibility that he might not be ready. So today is a big day for him. Joe Noteboom is really the only other guy in that IR category that you would talk about, that he's got a big workout schedule that maybe you would think about starting his window. And then really, we'll get an opportunity. Matthew's back's feeling really good. I know that when I brought that up to you guys, just kind of being like Ron Burgundy reading off the injury report, that was a lot of things. But he's doing great. He's not going to miss any time, and we'll get an opportunity to get out here with the guys today.
First of all, so Cooper will practice today.
He's working with Reggie and his group. He won't practice today, but he's going to work with Reggie and his group. And it's a big workout that will then dictate, all right, what does that look like for his availability on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday if he's going to play this week.
What goes into that workout? Obviously, we won't.
Game-like movements, running routes, really, and he's got such a good ability, Jordan, to be able to provide feedback. Whether you look at it as fortunately or unfortunately, he's an experienced player. He knows what it looks like to have his body in alignment to return to performance, not just return to play. And so we do want to be smart with that. Is there a possibility that weighing in the short turnaround with a Thursday game? But ultimately, it's about when is he ready to go and be the guy that we're capable, that we've been accustomed to seeing. And so we'll be excited about whenever that opportunity is, and I'll be kind of interested, just like you guys are, of how this is going. But even talking with him earlier today, he's feeling good, he's feeling optimistic, but he's also very aware of what that looks like to be ready to roll and to maybe not quite be there yet. And so today will be a big day.
You guys are at home the next couple of games, including on the short week, and he's been outspoken in the past about the playing surface and the turf and how it affects sometimes the recovery. Does that weigh at all into the practice?
I hadn't really thought about that, just because that's the situation that we're in. I can't control that. That would be probably a question better for him. But those aren't things, it's more about, all right, where is his ankle, and is it ready to go, and is he ready to be the Cooper Kupp that we're accustomed to seeing?
So Puka and Steve Avila,
yep.
You don't expect to see them practicing this
Do not expect to see those guys. So they're still a little bit of ways away. Exactly what that timeline is, kind of like what I've told you. Reggie and his group are working tirelessly to get those guys back. And so we'll be really excited when that window of opportunity opens up for those guys to start to practice, then to figure out what does it look like for them to be, implemented back into potentially competing and doing their thing for us. But in the meantime, the only guys that kind of really fit under that, I know Cooper wasn't placed on IR, but Cooper's the guy that's got a possibility, and then Joe Noteboom of the group that is currently on IR is the one that comes to mind.
Sean, during the preseason in the past, and then I believe the game in San Francisco last year, you've let assistant coaches call plays or get that opportunity. Did you ever get that opportunity as assistant? And if not, where did that idea come from?
Are you talking about in like preseason games? Yeah. I did get that opportunity, and that was what was stimulated. My first opportunity came in the preseason when I was, Jay Gruden, my first year as offensive coordinator, was the primary play caller. He gave me an opportunity to call those preseasons. I think they're great opportunities for growth and development, and, I like to look at it as a developmental staff. And I was fortunate to be poured into when I was a younger coach, and so there's nothing like getting those settings and situations in a less, I don't want to say less competitive, but it is simulating, real time with the play clock, different things of that nature. And so it was a reflection of, some of the ways that I was treated that I thought was really cool. And then when you actually did start calling plays, my second year as coordinator in Washington, you were at least better prepared for it. And you always like to try to, put yourselves in those positions to prepare, but there's nothing quite like getting those reps.
O'Connell said that when he got to LA, you guys had conversations where you told him, I think you were going to be a head coach one day. I want you to take the opportunity to learn and grow here, but I see that in your future.
Yeah.
What do you remember from those conversations, and I guess what made you think that?
He's got a great presence about himself. There's certain guys, and I met Kevin at a camp a long time ago, and I knew who he was as a player, and it's a small fraternity of people in coaching, and I'd always been really impressed with the way that he had handled himself. Then we got connected, and you could hear the capacity and the character of the human being, his ability to relate in an authentic way to a bunch of different people. And then when you got an opportunity to really, it wasn't even an interview, it was more of an opportunity to say, all right, I'd like to have you come here in 2020. You could immediately feel there's a leadership, there's a connection, there's a capacity for the game, there's different experiences that he had, whether it was as a player or as a coach, that he accelerated his progress, and I'm not in the least bit surprised. And he's a special guy, and and I think even just watching the way that he's navigated his first 2.5 years, you can't help but say, what a great leader he is. You listen to the way that his staff talks about him, and none of that is surprising to me in the least bit.
And then a couple of your assistant coaches and former assistant coaches have said really let coaches in. Zach Taylor said he kind of felt like he was also the head coach of the Rams because of some of the conversations you had. I don't know if that's a decision you made or you do it consciously, but why?
I think we just try to be an open environment. I so much of a lot of the ways that we do things are a reflection of where I felt like I was, treated really fairly and really well. In terms of, the inclusivity that you can provide for everybody. And then I also think, too, opening up the communication and the dialogue for guys to be able to, have the comfort in disagreeing, too. Because it's not just me. Like, when we say it and you mean it, a lot of these guys that have gone on, to get other leadership roles outside of this building, you miss them tremendously, but they also contribute tremendously to what goes on here. Whether that's, guys that you're asking about, whether that's, Raheem, Liam, Zach, you're watching all those guys. Jimmy Lake, do a great job yesterday as you sit there as a fan and watch. And so it's all part of the journey, and you use those things constantly. But I think the most important thing is let's continuously improve and let's make impacts. And those guys impacted me, and I hope, their experience here impacted them as well.
Do you expect to stick with the changes with Trey and other changes you guys made in the secondary?
I do. And I would say this, some of those things specific to different personnel groupings, Jordan, were specific to the Packers, exactly how we approach the Raiders. But in terms of getting Darius back, having some of those things, with Jacoby Durant at the outside corner, those guys, they did a nice job. We'll move forward with that.
Do you anticipate other personnel changes?
There'll be some, I'll talk to you guys about that. There'll be some different things that we'll look at. I do think, where it's available, I think competition brings out the best in guys. And might be some different things you see offensively that we'll explore to see guys compete. And then defensively, it's the same sort of thing, or, looking at ways to get guys involved. Those are definitely things that you'll see.
And then if you don't mind, the Trey White, when you guys brought him in, and obviously everyone's so excited about that, including him.
Yeah.
And you said at the time, and it was reiterated by Les, that we don't necessarily want to lean on him in the early parts because of the injury that he was going through. We'll need him in November. We'll need him in December. The injuries at other spots, did that sort of accelerate the process?
It did, yeah. And, I think, first things first, when you talk about Trey White, what an impressive human being, pro's pro, a guy that is, continuously responded and shown the work capacity, the character capacity to be able to handle a lot of different situations. And, I think you always have plans, and a lot of the plans that we had relative for this team or as it relates to what you're asking about, we're very different than what's unfolded, and that's our reality. And so because we were so injury prone at that spot defensively in particular, some other spots offensively, that did accelerate the amount of snaps that he was going to play. He did a great job of being ready to go, and he's a competitor, and so ultimately, really, can't say enough good things about him. And then, we're really looking at it, all right, what's the best thing for the Rams? But Trey White's a pro in every sense of the word, and it did unfold a little bit differently as a result of those injuries to ultimately answer your question.
Sean, with your record 1-4 going into the bye, I think the tendency would be that you guys were hard at work identifying what went wrong and how do we fix it.
Yep.
But were there things that you saw that you thought, actually, there are things that are going well that that if we build on, we can have a run.
100%. Here's the thing: with the exception of one game, we had opportunities where there's moments to be able to execute to come out with different results in 3 of our 4 losses, and that's true because the film illustrates that. You find a way to get over the hump and get it done against San Fran, and so. The gap isn't as far away. Now, ultimately, this league is about margins, and so how do we really do that? whether you look at it as a positive or negative, we've been in this situation before. And what we are going to choose to do is swing and continue to focus on the things that we can improve and identify those things to give guys a vision of, all right, what does it look like if this is a positive? And then if we're making some of these mistakes on things that we've already done at a high clip, how do we create that clarity? How do we understand the competitive stamina that's necessary through 4 quarters? And how are we accelerating some of the progress of some guys that are being asked to do things that maybe they didn't anticipate doing this early in the season? But I do know this. It was great for me, for our coaches. I got the right sense from our players that we got a lot of guys that are, mentally wired the right way to go attack an opportunity to respond and know that the season doesn't end after 5 games. Inevitably, every single year, somebody does a good job of not allowing the current circumstances to elicit their ability to be able to move forward and progress. And I choose to believe that that's exactly what we're going to try to do, everything in our power to do that. And then ultimately we have to be able to do it, Gary. Okay? Thanks, guys.
Thanks.